Picture this. You're 7 months pregnant, planning your baby shower when you accidentally see a text on your husband's phone, an engagement announcement to another woman for next month. But here's the twist that will blow your mind. This isn't just about infidelity. This is about a man so calculating, so ruthless, that he spent months systematically destroying his pregnant wife's life while pretending to love her, moving all their money into accounts she couldn't access, getting fake medical evaluations to declare her mentally unfit, planning to steal their newborn baby to complete the ultimate business merger. And just when you think Sarah Mitchell has lost everything, her home, her money, her dignity, her husband's most powerful enemy steps out of the shadows with an offer that changes everything. What happens when a pregnant woman with nothing left to lose teams up with a billionaire who has everything to gain? What happens when a mother's love collides with corporate greed and family dynasties worth billions? This is the story of how Sarah Mitchell went from victim to victor, how she turned her greatest betrayal into her most powerful weapon, and how sometimes the most unlikely alliances forge the strongest families. But I have to warn you, this story gets darker before it gets lighter. There are moments that will make you furious, twists that will leave you speechless, and a final confrontation that proves love really can conquer power. Stay with me for the next hour, because you're about to witness one of the most satisfying takedowns in modern history. And if this story resonates with you, if it reminds you that ordinary people can fight back against impossible odds, then hit that like button to help others find Sarah's story. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in her situation. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. And subscribe, because we're building a community of people who believe justice isn't just for the wealthy and powerful. Now let me tell you exactly how Sarah Mitchell's perfect life became her perfect nightmare, and how she turned that nightmare into someone else's reckoning. Sarah Mitchell stood in the marble-tiled kitchen of their Austin penthouse, her 7-month pregnant belly pressed against the granite countertop as she scrolled through Pinterest, planning the perfect baby shower. The afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden light across the open living space that had once felt like a palace, but now felt like a prison she was too naive to recognize. At 28, Sarah had built what everyone called the perfect life. She was the marketing director who had helped her husband Ryan Walsh transform his struggling tech startup into a $40 million company. Their penthouse overlooked the vibrant downtown Austin skyline, filled with modern art and designer furniture that screamed success. But today, something felt different. Ryan had been distant for weeks, claiming the upcoming merger with Sterling Industries required his complete attention. The late nights, the hushed phone calls, the way he flinched when she touched his shoulder, all of it had created a cold knot of anxiety in her chest that she kept trying to dismiss as pregnancy hormones. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a text from her best friend Emma Carter. "Coffee tomorrow? You sounded weird on the phone yesterday." Sarah was about to respond when she heard Ryan's phone pinging repeatedly from the bedroom. He was in the shower, and the constant notifications were unusual. Ryan was obsessive about his privacy, never leaving his phone unattended, always keeping it face down. The pinging continued. Curious and concerned, Sarah walked toward their bedroom. Ryan's iPhone sat on his nightstand, the screen lighting up with each new message. She could see the preview of the latest text without unlocking the phone. "Victoria Sterling, can't wait to celebrate our engagement tonight, baby. The reservation at..." Sarah's world tilted. The phone slipped from her trembling hands, clattering to the hardwood floor. Engagement. The word echoed in her mind as she stared at the cracked screen displaying more messages from Victoria Sterling, daughter of the tech mogul whose company was supposedly just a business partner. She heard the shower turn off. Panic flooded her system as she realized Ryan would emerge any moment. She picked up his phone with shaking hands, her pregnant belly making it difficult to bend down. The crack across the screen seemed to mirror the fracture spreading through her chest. "Sarah?" Ryan's voice called from the bathroom. "Everything okay out there?" She set the phone back on the nightstand, trying to position it exactly as it had been. Her mind raced through the implications. Victoria Sterling, the woman who had been at every recent business dinner, every company event, every meeting that ran late into the night. The bathroom door opened, and Ryan emerged with a towel wrapped around his waist, his dark hair still damp. At 35, he was undeniably handsome, with the kind of confident smile that had first attracted her in business school. That same smile now looked like a mask. "You look pale," he said, studying her face. "Is the baby okay?" The concern in his voice felt like acid on an open wound. How could he stand there, naked and vulnerable, asking about their child while planning to marry another woman? "I'm fine," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just tired." Ryan nodded, already distracted as he reached for his phone. His face darkened when he saw the cracked screen. "What happened to this?" "It fell," Sarah said, which was technically true. "I'm sorry, I was cleaning and knocked it over." He frowned, turning the phone in his hands. "It's completely shattered. This is going to be a nightmare to replace with everything encrypted on here." Sarah watched him, searching his face for any sign of guilt, any indication that he realized she might have seen something. But Ryan was already moving toward his closet, scrolling through his damaged phone as if nothing had changed. Nothing had changed for him, she realized. This was just another day in his double life. "I need to run some errands," she said suddenly, grabbing her purse from the dresser. "Baby shower planning." "Sounds good," Ryan replied without looking up from his phone. "I've got that dinner meeting tonight. Might be late." The dinner meeting with his fiancée. Sarah left the penthouse in a daze, her mind struggling to process what she had discovered. 7 months pregnant, she had just learned that her husband, the father of her unborn child, was engaged to another woman. Sarah sat in her Honda Civic in the parking garage beneath their building, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she tried to steady her breathing. The contrast between her modest car and Ryan's Tesla in the next space felt symbolic of everything she was beginning to understand about their relationship. She pulled out her own phone and did what any woman in the digital age would do. She Googled Victoria Sterling. The results were immediate and devastating. Victoria Sterling, 26, heiress to the Sterling Industries fortune, influencer with 2 million Instagram followers, and according to a gossip blog from just 3 hours ago, newly engaged to tech entrepreneur Ryan Walsh. There were photos, professional engagement photos that must have been taken weeks ago. Victoria in a flowing white dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled, showing off a massive diamond ring as Ryan kissed her cheek. The caption read, "Tech power couple announces engagement. Wedding planned for next month." Next month. Sarah was due in 8 weeks. Her phone rang, making her jump. Emma Carter's name appeared on the screen, and Sarah realized she had been sitting in the garage for over an hour. "Hey," Sarah answered, her voice cracking. "Sarah, what's wrong? You sound awful." Sarah closed her eyes, trying to find the words. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. As my friend and as a lawyer." Emma Carter had been Sarah's roommate in college and was now one of Austin's most successful divorce attorneys. She had built her practice representing women who discovered their husbands' betrayals, and she had a reputation for being both compassionate and ruthless. "Of course. What's going on?" If a man is married and gets engaged to someone else while his wife is pregnant, what are the wife's legal options? The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for several seconds. When Emma spoke again, her voice had shifted into professional mode. "Sarah, where are you right now?" "In my car, in the garage of our building." "Don't go back upstairs. Meet me at my office. Now." "Emma, I just need to know." "Sarah, listen to me very carefully. If what you're suggesting is true, then you're not just dealing with infidelity. You're dealing with fraud, potentially bigamy, and a man who is capable of destroying your life and your child's future. Do not confront him alone. Come to my office immediately." Sarah had known Emma for 10 years, and she had never heard her friend sound so serious, so urgent. "Okay," Sarah whispered. "I'm coming." The drive to Emma's downtown law office passed in a blur. Sarah's mind kept returning to moments from the past few months that suddenly made horrifying sense. Ryan's insistence that she not attend certain business events. His suggestion that she take extended maternity leave before the baby was even born. The way he had become increasingly controlling about their finances, claiming it was for better organization. Emma's office occupied the 20th floor of a glass tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Lady Bird Lake. Emma Carter was a striking woman with auburn hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had built her reputation by being prepared for anything. But when Sarah walked into her office, Emma's usually composed expression cracked with concern. "Show me what you found," Emma said without preamble. Sarah handed over her phone with the engagement announcement still open. Emma studied the screen, her jaw tightening with each detail she absorbed. "When was this published?" "3 hours ago. But look at the photos, Emma. They're professional shots. This has been planned for weeks, maybe months." Emma set the phone down and walked to her window, staring out at the city below. "Sarah, I need you to think very carefully about the past few months. Has Ryan made any significant changes to your financial arrangements? Joint accounts, insurance policies, anything like that?" Sarah thought back, her stomach sinking as she remembered. "About 2 months ago, he said we needed to restructure our accounts for tax purposes. He moved everything into corporate accounts and trusts. He said it was to protect us if the company got sued." "And you signed the papers?" "Yes. He said it was just paperwork, that nothing would really change." Emma turned back to face her, and Sarah could see the anger building in her friend's eyes. "Sarah, I think he's been planning this for months. If he's moved all your assets into corporate entities that he controls, and if he's planning to marry Victoria Sterling next month, then he's not just leaving you. He's been systematically stripping away your legal protections." The room seemed to spin around Sarah. "What does that mean?" "It means he's not just having an affair. He's been executing a plan to divorce you, take control of all your shared assets, and leave you with nothing. The timing isn't coincidental, Sarah. He's trying to complete this before the baby is born, probably to limit his child support obligations and parental responsibilities." Sarah sank into the leather chair across from Emma's desk, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. The baby kicked, as if sensing her distress. "But we built that company together," Sarah said. "I was the one who created the marketing strategy that got us our first major clients. I worked 60-hour weeks while he focused on the technology." "I know," Emma said gently, "but if the legal documents say he owns everything, then your contributions won't matter unless we can prove fraud or duress. Sarah, I need to ask you this directly. Do you think Ryan would try to take the baby?" The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. "I don't know. I don't know who he is anymore." Emma walked around her desk and knelt beside Sarah's chair, taking her hands. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to gather evidence, we're going to protect your rights, and we're going to make sure that baby is safe. But first, you need to go home and act normal. Don't let him know that you know anything. Can you do that?" Sarah nodded, though she wasn't sure she could pull off such a performance. "And Sarah, this is going to get ugly before it gets better. Ryan Walsh is about to discover that he picked the wrong woman to betray." Sarah returned to the penthouse as the sun was setting, painting the Austin skyline in shades of orange and pink that she normally would have found beautiful. Tonight, the colors looked ominous, like a warning of the storm about to break. Ryan was in his study, door closed, his voice audible through the walls as he spoke on the phone. Sarah caught fragments of the conversation. "Tomorrow's announcement, make sure the timing is perfect. She doesn't suspect anything." Each word was a knife in her chest, but Emma's advice echoed in her mind. Gather evidence, stay calm, protect yourself and the baby. Sarah walked quietly to their bedroom and began going through Ryan's things, looking for anything that might help her case. In his desk drawer, hidden beneath some old tech manuals, she found a folder marked Sterling Merger, Personal. Inside were documents that made her blood run cold. Divorce papers, already prepared and waiting for her signature. A custody agreement that would give Ryan minimal visitation rights and correspondingly minimal financial responsibility. Most shocking of all, a letter from Ryan's attorney to Victoria's family, outlining how the divorce would be finalized before their wedding, ensuring that Sarah's pregnancy would not complicate their new union. The folder contained one more document that stopped Sarah's heart. A medical report recommending that she be declared mentally unstable due to pregnancy-related emotional volatility. It was signed by a doctor she had never met. Sarah quickly photographed each document with her phone, her hands shaking so badly she had to take several shots to get clear images. She was replacing the folder when she heard Ryan's study door open. "Sarah, you back?" "In here," she called, trying to keep her voice steady. Ryan appeared in the bedroom doorway, already dressed for his business dinner in an expensive suit she had given him for their anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on her. "How did the baby shower planning go?" he asked, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "Fine," Sarah managed, "just picking venues and coordinating with caterers." Ryan nodded absently, checking his watch. "I should head out soon. This dinner with the Sterling Industries executives is crucial for finalizing the merger." The lie came so easily to him, so naturally that Sarah realized this wasn't new behavior. He had probably been lying to her for months, maybe years. "Ryan," she said suddenly, the words leaving her mouth before she could stop them. "Do you love me?" He paused in adjusting his cufflinks, looking at her in the mirror with an expression she couldn't read. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that? I just, with the baby coming and everything changing, I want to make sure we're solid, that we're in this together." For a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or perhaps just irritation at having to maintain the charade. "We're fine, Sarah. Everything is exactly as it should be." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with a meaning he didn't realize she understood. After Ryan left, Sarah sat on their bed, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal, and allowed herself to cry for the first time since discovering the truth. But even as she grieved for the marriage she thought she had, another emotion was building inside her: determination. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "How did it go? Did you find anything?" Sarah sent back the photos she had taken, along with a message. "Found everything. He's not just leaving me. He's trying to destroy me." Emma's response came immediately. "We stop him tomorrow. Get some sleep if you can. Trust me, Sarah. We've got this." Sure. But as Sarah lay in the bed she had shared with Ryan for 3 years, feeling their baby moving inside her, she wasn't sure anyone could stop what Ryan had put in motion. He had been planning this betrayal for months, using her trust and love against her while building a new life with another woman. Tomorrow she would have to face the man she had loved, had built a life with, had created a child with, and reveal that she knew the truth about who he really was. The thought terrified her, but beneath the fear was something else. A fierce, protective love for the baby growing inside her, and a growing determination that Ryan Walsh would not destroy their lives without a fight. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover that trust was being used as a weapon against you? Tomorrow, Sarah would learn just how far Ryan was willing to go to erase her from his life, and she would have to find strength she didn't know she possessed to protect herself and her unborn child. The next morning, Sarah woke to find Ryan already gone. A note on the kitchen counter read, "Early meeting, home late, love you." The casual cruelty of the lie made her stomach turn. Emma arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying 2 coffee cups and a legal briefcase that looked like it could contain weapons. She had brought reinforcements. James Morrison, one of Austin's most feared litigation attorneys, a man whose reputation for destroying opposing counsel was legendary. "Sarah," James said, his voice gravelly from years of courtroom battles, "Emma showed me what you found. Ryan Walsh is about to learn that bigamy is still a federal crime in Texas." They spread the evidence across Sarah's dining room table, the same table where she and Ryan had shared thousands of meals, planned their future, discussed baby names. Now it was covered with proof of his betrayal. "Here's the timeline," Emma explained, pointing to the documents. 2 months ago, Ryan moved all your assets into corporate entities he controls. 3 weeks ago, he filed preliminary divorce papers. Last week, he obtained a fraudulent medical evaluation declaring you mentally unstable. And tomorrow, he's planning to announce his engagement to Victoria Sterling. "But he's already announced it," Sarah protested. "I saw it online yesterday." James and Emma exchanged a look. "That was just the gossip blogs," James said. "Tomorrow is the official announcement at the Sterling Industries board meeting. Victoria's father is planning to name Ryan as the new CEO of their merged companies. He needs to be legally free to marry Victoria before that happens." Sarah felt the world shifting beneath her feet. So this was all about money and power. I was just in the way. "Worse than that," Emma said gently. "He's been actively working to discredit you so that when he files for divorce, he can claim you're an unfit mother. The mental health evaluation he obtained was designed to support a custody battle. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Ryan hadn't just fallen out of love with her. He had been systematically destroying her life while pretending to care about their marriage and their child. "What do we do?" Sarah asked. James smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "We destroy him first." They spent the morning crafting their strategy. James would file an injunction to freeze all assets, preventing Ryan from transferring any more money out of their joint holdings. Emma would prepare a federal complaint for bigamy and fraud, and Sarah would document everything, gathering evidence of Ryan's double life. "The key," James explained, "is timing. Ryan thinks he has you cornered, that you're too trusting or too naive to fight back. We're going to hit him with everything at once before he can react." At noon, Sarah's phone rang. Ryan's name appeared on the screen, and Emma nodded for her to answer. "Hey," Sarah said, trying to sound normal. "Sarah, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the office?" "Is everything okay?" "Just some paperwork we need to take care of. Business stuff for the merger. Nothing major." Sarah looked at Emma, who was shaking her head vigorously. "Actually, I'm not feeling well today. The baby's been acting up. Can it wait?" There was a pause. "No, it really can't. This is time-sensitive, Sarah. I need you to come in this afternoon." The urgency in his voice confirmed their suspicions. Ryan was moving forward with his plan, probably trying to get her signature on something while she was still unaware of his intentions. "Okay," Sarah said. "I'll be there in an hour." After she hung up, James looked grimly satisfied. He's making his move, which means we make ours. They spent the next hour preparing Sarah for what was about to happen. She would go to Ryan's office, pretend to cooperate, and let him reveal his true intentions while wearing a wire that would record everything. "Remember," Emma said as they fitted the small recording device beneath Sarah's maternity blouse, "let him talk. Let him explain his plan. The more he says, the more evidence we have." Sarah drove to the sleek downtown building that housed Ryan's company, the same building where she had worked 60-hour weeks to help build his dream. The irony that she was now entering as an enemy rather than a partner wasn't lost on her. Ryan's assistant, a young woman named Jessica, who had always been friendly to Sarah, looked uncomfortable when she arrived. "He's waiting for you in the conference room," Jessica said, avoiding eye contact. Sarah found Ryan standing at the head of the polished conference table, several legal documents spread before him. His lawyer, a sharp-faced man in an expensive suit, sat to his right. The setup looked like an execution. "Sarah, thanks for coming," Ryan said, his voice artificially warm. "I know this is unexpected, but we have some urgent paperwork to handle." "What kind of paperwork?" Ryan gestured to the chair across from him. "Why don't you sit down? This might take a while." Sarah remained standing. Something about the way Ryan was looking at her, like she was a problem to be solved rather than his wife and the mother of his child, made her skin crawl. "I'd rather stand," she said. "What is this about, Ryan?" His mask finally began to slip. The warm husband facade faded, replaced by the cold businessman she was beginning to recognize as his true self. "Sarah, I need you to sign these documents. They're amendments to our financial agreements, updated to reflect the new corporate structure." Sarah looked at the papers without touching them. Even from a distance, she could see they were the same divorce documents she had photographed the night before. "I don't understand," she said, though she understood perfectly. "Why the rush? Why today?" Ryan's lawyer spoke for the first time. "Mrs. Walsh, these documents are necessary to protect both you and your husband's interests as you move forward. The sooner we finalize these arrangements, the better for everyone involved." "Move forward to what?" Sarah asked. Ryan stood up, his patience finally exhausted. "Sarah, I'm going to be direct with you because we don't have time for games. Our marriage isn't working. It hasn't been working for a long time. These papers will give you a fair settlement and ensure that the baby is provided for. But I need you to sign them today." "And if I don't?" The look that crossed Ryan's face was pure venom. "Then things get complicated for you, Sarah." Very complicated. It was the threat Emma had predicted, delivered exactly as James had said it would be. Sarah touched the recording device beneath her shirt, making sure it was still in place. "Complicated how?" "Mental health evaluations, fitness hearings, custody battles that could last for years. Is that really what you want for our child? There it was, the threat to take her baby, delivered with the casual cruelty of a man who saw other people as obstacles to be removed. Sarah looked at the man she had loved, had trusted, had built a life with, and realized she was looking at a stranger. Worse than a stranger, an enemy who was prepared to destroy her and their child to get what he wanted. No, she said quietly, I don't want that for our child. Ryan's expression relaxed, thinking he had won. Good, then let's get this signed and we can all move forward. Sarah picked up the pen he offered, holding it over the signature line. Then she looked up at him with a smile that would have made James Morrison proud. But I'm not signing anything today, Ryan, because I know about Victoria Sterling. I know about the engagement. I know about the merger. And I know about the fake medical evaluation you obtained to declare me mentally unfit. The color drained from Ryan's face. His lawyer looked confused, clearly not aware of the full scope of Ryan's deception. Most importantly, Sarah continued, I know that bigamy is a federal crime and that everything you've done in the past 2 months constitutes fraud. So here's what's going to happen instead. My attorneys are filing injunctions to freeze our assets, federal charges for bigamy and fraud, and a custody filing that will ensure you never get unsupervised access to our child. She set the pen down gently on the table. Oh, and Ryan, this entire conversation has been recorded. So if you're thinking about threatening me again, remember that everything you've said is now evidence. Ryan's lawyer was already reaching for his phone, probably calling his office for backup. But Ryan himself just stared at Sarah, his face cycling through shock, rage, and something that might have been respect. You think you've won, he said finally, but you have no idea what you're up against. The Sterling family has resources you can't imagine, Sarah. They'll destroy you. Maybe, Sarah said, walking toward the door, but they'll have to catch me first. As she left the conference room, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Power. Ryan had spent so long treating her like a victim that he had forgotten she was also a fighter. The war was just beginning, but for the first time since discovering his betrayal, Sarah felt like she might actually win. Sarah's moment of triumph lasted exactly 18 hours. She woke the next morning to find her bank account frozen, her credit cards canceled, and an eviction notice taped to her apartment door. Ryan's retaliation had been swift and brutal. Emma arrived within the hour, her face grim. He's moved faster than we anticipated, she said, studying the legal documents. The asset freeze we filed should have prevented this, but he's claiming the penthouse and all associated accounts are corporate property, not marital assets. Can he do that? If the paperwork you signed 2 months ago was as comprehensive as I think it was, then yes, he can do exactly that. Sarah sank onto the couch, her hand resting on her belly. The baby was due in 6 weeks, and she was about to be homeless. How did I not see this coming? Because you trusted your husband, Emma said gently. That's not a character flaw, Sarah. That's what marriage is supposed to be built on. James Morrison arrived as they were discussing temporary housing options, and his expression was even grimmer than Emma's. We have a problem, he announced. Ryan's not just coming after you financially. He's filed for emergency custody of the unborn child, claiming you're a danger to yourself and the baby. Phew. Based on what? The fraudulent medical evaluation, plus a new affidavit claiming you've been unstable and threatening. Apparently, yesterday's confrontation in his office is being characterized as a mentally unstable woman making wild accusations. Sarah felt the walls closing in around her. Ryan had been 3 moves ahead from the beginning, and every step she took to fight back seemed to make things worse. There's something else, James continued. The judge who's hearing the emergency custody petition is Judge Margaret Hoffman. She's known for being conservative on family issues, and she has personal relationships with several members of the Sterling family. So we're fighting a rigged game, Sarah said. It gets worse, Emma added. I've been making calls about temporary housing, but Ryan's reached out to every landlord in the city. No one will rent to you. Your credit has been destroyed, and there are questions about your mental fitness. Sarah felt despair creeping in. Ryan had isolated her completely, cutting off every avenue of escape. She was 7 months pregnant, about to be homeless, facing a custody battle with no resources to fight back. That's when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made her answer. Sarah Mitchell? The voice was deep, authoritative, with a slight accent she couldn't place. Yes? My name is Marcus Blackwood. I believe we need to talk. Sarah recognized the name immediately. Marcus Blackwood was a legend in the tech world, a self-made billionaire who had built his empire from nothing. He was also, according to industry gossip, Ryan's most formidable competitor and bitter enemy. I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but I don't think this is a good time. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm calling because I know what Ryan Walsh has done to you, and I know what he's planning to do next. If you want to protect yourself and your child, you need to meet with me. Today. Emma was frantically shaking her head, but something in Blackwood's voice made Sarah pause. There was no manipulation in his tone, no hidden agenda that she could detect, just a straightforward offer. Why would you want to help me? Because Ryan Walsh stole proprietary technology from my company to build his empire, and because he's about to merge with Sterling Industries using stolen intellectual property. You're not just his wife, Mrs. Mitchell. You're a witness to his crimes and a threat to his plans. The pieces clicked into place. He stole from you? The algorithm that made Walsh Technologies profitable was developed by my team 3 years ago. Ryan accessed it through a security breach that we traced back to his company, but we could never prove his personal involvement. Until now. Sarah looked at Emma and James, both of whom were listening intently. What are you proposing? A mutually beneficial arrangement. I provide you with the resources to fight Ryan's custody battle and protect your child. In return, you provide testimony about his business practices and access to any evidence of his illegal activities. I'm not sure I have evidence of. Mrs. Mitchell, you worked side by side with Ryan for 3 years. You have access to his files, his communications, his business strategies. You know which clients were acquired through stolen technology, which contracts were signed using fraudulent information. You're sitting on evidence worth billions of dollars. Emma grabbed the phone from Sarah's hand. Mr. Blackwood, this is Emma Carter, Sarah's attorney. Any arrangement would need to be formalized through proper legal channels. Of course, Blackwood replied smoothly. I have a team of attorneys standing by, but time is critical. Ryan's emergency custody hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and Sterling Industries is announcing the merger tomorrow afternoon. Once those dominoes fall, Sarah's options become very limited. Emma muted the phone and turned to Sarah. This is dangerous. We don't know his real motivations, and getting involved in a corporate war between billionaires could make things worse for you. Could they get worse? Sarah asked. I'm about to be homeless and lose my baby to a man who's planning to marry someone else next month. James Morrison had been quiet during the conversation, but now he spoke up. Actually, this could work in our favor. If Blackwood has evidence of Ryan's technology theft, and if Sarah can provide corroborating testimony, then we're not just fighting a custody battle. We're fighting criminal charges for corporate espionage. Emma unmuted the phone. Mr. Blackwood, if we agree to meet, it's just a conversation. No commitments until we understand the full scope of what you're proposing. Understood. I can have a car pick up Mrs. Mitchell in 30 minutes. My office is secure, private, and protected. Given Ryan's resources and connections, that may be important. Sarah thought about the eviction notice, the frozen accounts, the custody hearing tomorrow that she had no resources to fight. Then she thought about the baby growing inside her, the child who deserved better than a father who saw people as assets to be acquired or obstacles to be eliminated. Okay, she said, 30 minutes. After hanging up, Emma grabbed Sarah's shoulders. Are you sure about this? Once you get involved with Marcus Blackwood, there's no going back. This becomes war. Sarah thought about Ryan's cold smile as he threatened to take her baby, about the casual cruelty with which he had dismantled her life while pretending to love her. Emma, she said quietly, it was already war. I just didn't know I was fighting. 30 minutes later, Sarah sat in the back of a black Mercedes, watching Austin disappear behind her as they drove toward whatever came next. She was 7 months pregnant, nearly homeless, and about to make an alliance with a man she had never met to fight the person she had once loved most in the world. But for the first time in days, she felt something other than fear. She felt the possibility of hope and the promise of justice. Sometimes the most unexpected alliances are forged in the darkest moments, when you have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Marcus Blackwood's office occupied the top 3 floors of the tallest building in downtown Austin, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of the city. When Sarah entered the main conference room, she understood immediately why Ryan considered this man his greatest threat. Blackwood was 40 years old, tall and imposing, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. But it wasn't his physical presence that was intimidating. It was the quiet intensity that radiated from him, the sense that he was always 3 moves ahead of everyone else in the room. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, rising from behind a massive desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of black granite. "Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult." Sarah had expected a corporate shark, someone who would try to manipulate her emotions or overwhelm her with legal complexity. Instead, Blackwood's manner was straightforward, almost gentle. "I'll be direct," he continued, gesturing for her to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Ryan Walsh has been stealing from my company for 3 years. He's built his entire empire on technology that belongs to me, and he's about to complete the ultimate theft by merging with Sterling Industries using assets that aren't his." He opened a thick folder and spread documents across the desk between them. "This is evidence of the theft. Security logs showing unauthorized access to our servers, code comparisons proving the algorithms are identical, and communications between Ryan and several former employees who sold proprietary information." Sarah studied the documents, recognizing some of the dates and project names from her time working at Walsh Technologies. "I remember these projects," she said slowly. "Ryan always claimed he developed the algorithms himself." "He's a gifted liar," Blackwood replied. "But he's not a programmer. Every major breakthrough at Walsh Technologies was stolen from someone else, primarily from us. Why haven't you taken him to court?" Blackwood's expression darkened. "I tried, but Ryan has been very careful to cover his tracks, and the Sterling family has significant influence in the legal system. Every time I've gotten close to proving the theft, suddenly judges recuse themselves, witnesses become unavailable, evidence disappears." Sarah felt a chill of recognition. "That's what he's doing to me, isolating me, controlling the narrative, making sure I can't fight back." "Exactly, but you have something I've never had, inside access. You worked alongside Ryan for 3 years. You have knowledge of his business practices, his communications, his strategies. Most importantly, you have legitimate legal standing as his wife and the mother of his child." Emma Carter had insisted on attending the meeting, and now she spoke up from her seat beside Sarah. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Blackwood?" "I'm proposing an alliance. I provide Sarah with the resources she needs to fight Ryan's custody battle and protect her child. Legal representation, financial support, secure housing, whatever she needs. In return, Sarah provides testimony about Ryan's business practices and any evidence she can access regarding his theft of intellectual property." "And what happens to Sarah when this corporate war is over?" Emma asked pointedly. "She gets justice," Blackwood replied simply. "Ryan Walsh is stripped of his stolen empire, held accountable for his crimes, and prevented from taking custody of a child he's already proven he doesn't deserve." Sarah looked out the window at the city below, thinking about the life she had built with Ryan, the future she had planned, the trust she had placed in a man who was systematically destroying her. Then she thought about the baby growing inside her, the child who deserved protection from a father who saw people as commodities. "I need guarantees," she said finally. "Legal protections for myself and my child. I won't be anyone's pawn, Mr. Blackwood, not even yours." For the first time since she had entered the room, Blackwood smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "I wouldn't expect anything less. My attorney will draft an agreement that protects your interests and ensures your independence, regardless of the outcome of our corporate dispute." They spent the next 2 hours negotiating the terms of their alliance. Sarah would receive immediate housing in a secure residence, comprehensive legal representation for her custody battle, and financial support until the situation was resolved. In return, she would provide testimony about Ryan's business practices and assist in gathering evidence of his corporate theft. "There's one more thing," Blackwood said as they prepared to finalize the agreement. "Ryan's emergency custody hearing is tomorrow morning. We need to be prepared for anything he might try." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "I mean Ryan Walsh is desperate. His merger with Sterling Industries depends on completing his divorce and custody arrangements before the wedding next month. If he can't control you, he'll try to eliminate you as a threat entirely. Emma leaned forward. Are you suggesting he might try to harm Sarah physically? I'm suggesting that Ryan Walsh has already proven he's willing to commit fraud, theft, and emotional abuse to get what he wants. Physical intimidation isn't a large step from where he's already gone. Sarah felt the baby kick, as if responding to the tension in the room. The child she was carrying would be born into a world where its father was prepared to destroy its mother to maintain his empire built on lies. Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance, she said firmly. Blackwood nodded approvingly. My security team will ensure your safety, and my legal team will be prepared for whatever Ryan tries at tomorrow's hearing. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. Once we move forward with this alliance, there's no going back. Ryan will see this as the ultimate betrayal, and he'll respond accordingly. Sarah thought about the man she had married, the person she had trusted with her heart and her future. That man had never existed. The real Ryan Walsh was someone who could look her in the eye while planning to steal her child and destroy her life. He betrayed me first, she said quietly. I'm just finally fighting back. As Sarah signed the alliance agreement, she realized that she was no longer the naive woman who had discovered her husband's infidelity just days before. She was becoming someone harder, someone more strategic, someone capable of playing the same ruthless game that Ryan had been playing all along. Tomorrow's custody hearing would be the first real battle in a war that would determine not just her future, but the future of her unborn child. With Marcus Blackwood's resources behind her, she finally had a chance to win. But winning would require becoming someone she had never been before, someone capable of destroying the man she had once loved, before he could destroy her and their child first. The transformation was already beginning, and there would be no going back. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Sarah arrived for the emergency custody hearing, flanked by a legal team that Marcus Blackwood had assembled overnight. Emma Carter led the group, but she was now supported by two additional attorneys, Catherine Stone, a specialist in high-stakes custody battles, and David Chen, an expert in corporate crime whose presence sent a clear message about the scope of their case. Ryan sat at the opposing table with his attorney and two representatives from the Sterling family legal team. When he saw Sarah's expanded representation, his confident expression faltered for the first time since this battle had begun. Judge Margaret Hoffman entered the courtroom with the bearing of someone accustomed to making decisions that change lives. She was in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that revealed nothing of her thoughts. This is an unusual emergency petition, Judge Hoffman began, reviewing the documents before her. Mr. Walsh, you're seeking custody of an unborn child based on claims that the mother poses a danger to herself and the child. These are serious allegations. Ryan's attorney, David Pierce, stood to present their case. Your Honor, Mrs. Walsh has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior over the past several weeks. She has made wild accusations against her husband, including unfounded claims of infidelity and business impropriety. Yesterday, she confronted Mr. Walsh at his office in what witnesses described as an aggressive and unstable manner. Sarah felt her anger rising, but Catherine Stone placed a restraining hand on her arm. They had prepared for this approach. Furthermore, Pierce continued, Mrs. Walsh is currently facing eviction due to financial irresponsibility, and she has formed an inappropriate alliance with Marcus Blackwood, a known business rival of her husband. We believe she is being manipulated by Mr. Blackwood for his own corporate purposes, putting both her welfare and that of the unborn child at risk. Judge Hoffman looked skeptical. Mr. Pierce, you're asking me to award custody of an unborn child to a father who, according to these same documents, is planning to marry another woman next month. How do you reconcile that with claims of wanting what's best for the child? Pierce looked uncomfortable. Your Honor, Mr. Walsh's personal life has no bearing on his fitness as a father. He has the financial resources and emotional stability to provide for the child's needs. Catherine Stone rose for Sarah's response, and her presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. Stone was known for destroying opposing counsel with precision and facts, and her reputation preceded her. Your Honor, Stone began, what we have here is not a concerned father seeking custody. What we have is a systematic campaign to discredit and control a pregnant woman by a man who has been planning to abandon his family for months. Stone opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. These are financial records showing that Mr. Walsh has been systematically moving marital assets out of his wife's reach for the past 3 months. These are communications between Mr. Walsh and Victoria Sterling, dating back 6 months, discussing their wedding plans while Mrs. Walsh was pregnant with his child. And this is the fraudulent medical evaluation that Mr. Walsh obtained without his wife's knowledge or consent. Judge Hoffman's expression grew increasingly stern as Stone presented each piece of evidence. You're claiming fraud, Mrs. Stone? I'm claiming systematic abuse, Your Honor. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, and an attempt to use the court system to complete that abuse by taking custody of a child from a mother who has done nothing wrong except discover her husband's betrayal. Ryan's attorney tried to object, but Stone continued. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Walsh has engaged in criminal activity that calls into question his fitness as a parent. David Chen stood up, introducing himself as a federal prosecutor on loan from the Corporate Crimes Division. Your Honor, Mr. Walsh is currently under federal investigation for theft of intellectual property, corporate espionage, and fraud. The evidence suggests he has built his entire business empire on stolen technology. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Hoffman banged her gavel for order, her eyes fixed on Ryan, who had gone pale. Mr. Pierce, Judge Hoffman said coldly, did you know about this federal investigation when you filed this petition? Pierce looked confused and angry, clearly having been kept in the dark by his client. No, Your Honor, I was not aware of any criminal investigation. Judge Hoffman turned to Ryan directly. Mr. Walsh, are you under federal investigation? Ryan stood slowly, his confidence completely shattered. Your Honor, I haven't been formally charged with anything. These are just allegations from a business competitor who is using my wife to attack me. Your Honor, Catherine Stone interjected, if I may, we have additional evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Walsh's claims about his wife's mental state. Stone played a recording that filled the courtroom with Ryan's voice from their confrontation 2 days before. Mental health evaluations, fitness hearings, custody battles that could last for years. Is that really what you want for our child? Judge Hoffman's face had grown progressively darker as the evidence mounted. When the recording ended, she looked at Ryan with undisguised disgust. Mr. Walsh, this court does not appreciate being used as a weapon in someone's personal vendetta. The evidence presented today suggests that you have engaged in systematic abuse of your pregnant wife, fraudulent financial manipulation, and potentially serious criminal activity. She turned to Pierce. Mr. Pierce, I suggest you seriously reconsider your representation of this client. As for this emergency petition, it is not only denied, it is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am issuing a restraining order preventing Mr. Walsh from approaching Mrs. Walsh or making any decisions regarding the unborn child without court approval. Ryan jumped to his feet. Your Honor, you don't understand what you're doing. This woman is being manipulated by my business enemies. She's not mentally capable of making decisions about our child. Mr. Walsh, Judge Hoffman said with icy authority, sit down and be quiet, or I will hold you in contempt of court. But Ryan was beyond controlling himself. Months of careful planning were crumbling before his eyes, and his desperation was showing. This is all lies. She's just a bitter woman who can't accept that our marriage is over. I built everything we have, and she's trying to destroy it out of spite. Judge Hoffman stood up. Mr. Walsh, you are now in contempt of court. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Walsh to a holding cell until he can control himself. As the bailiff approached, Ryan turned to Sarah with pure hatred in his eyes. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've just started. The Sterling family has resources you can't imagine. They'll destroy you and take that baby, and there won't be anything you can do to stop them. Security dragged Ryan from the courtroom as he continued shouting threats. The judge shook her head in disgust before addressing Sarah directly. Mrs. Walsh, I'm granting you full temporary custody of your unborn child, and I'm extending the restraining order to include any representatives of the Sterling family. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for investigation of perjury and fraud. As they left the courthouse, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and terror. They had won the battle, but Ryan's threats echoed in her mind. The Sterling family's resources were indeed vast, and their reach extended far beyond Austin. "What happens now?" Sarah asked Catherine Stone as they stood on the courthouse steps. "Now we prepare for war," Stone replied grimly, "because Ryan Walsh was right about one thing. This is just the beginning." Marcus Blackwood was waiting by a black SUV, his expression unreadable. When Sarah approached, he looked at her with something that might have been respect. "Congratulations," he said simply. "You've just declared war on one of the most powerful families in Texas. I hope you're ready for what comes next." Sarah looked back at the courthouse where she had just destroyed the man she once loved, then forward at the uncertain future that awaited her and her unborn child. "I'm ready," she said, and for the first time, she truly meant it. Sarah's victory at the courthouse lasted exactly 48 hours. She woke up in the secure apartment Marcus Blackwood had provided to find Emma Carter on her doorstep, her face pale with worry. "We have a problem," Emma said without preamble. "A big one." Inside the apartment, Emma spread newspapers across the coffee table. The headlines were devastating. "Tech heiress claims pregnant woman threatened her life." "Blackwood uses mentally ill woman in corporate vendetta." "Custody battle reveals disturbing alliance." The stories painted Sarah as an unstable woman being manipulated by Marcus Blackwood to attack an innocent businessman and his fiancée. Victoria Sterling had given interviews portraying herself as the victim of Sarah's jealous rage, complete with tearful photos and claims that Sarah had made threatening phone calls. "None of this is true," Sarah said, staring at a photo of Victoria looking terrified and vulnerable. "Of course it's not true," Emma replied. "But the Sterling family owns 3 major media outlets in Texas, and they have relationships with journalists across the country. Truth isn't the point. Narrative control is the point." Sarah's phone began ringing constantly. Reporters, bloggers, even random strangers who had gotten her number somehow. She turned it off, but the damage was already spreading across social media. "It gets worse," Emma continued. "Judge Hoffman has been recused from your case. Apparently someone raised questions about her impartiality given her relationship with Marcus Blackwood's family." "What relationship?" "Blackwood's company donated money to renovate her daughter's school library 5 years ago. It's completely innocent, but the Sterling legal team made it look like corruption." Sarah felt the walls closing in again. Every victory was being systematically dismantled by people with more resources and fewer scruples than she had imagined possible. Marcus Blackwood arrived as Emma was explaining the media strategy being used against them. His usual calm demeanor showed cracks of anger as he reviewed the newspaper headlines. "They're not just attacking you," he told Sarah. "They're attacking me through you, trying to make it look like I'm manipulating a vulnerable pregnant woman for business purposes." "Aren't you?" Sarah asked quietly. Blackwood looked at her for a long moment. "Originally, yes. That was part of my motivation, but not anymore." "Why not?" "Because I've watched you fight for the past week, and I've seen what Ryan Walsh is capable of. This isn't about corporate espionage anymore, Sarah. This is about protecting you and your child from people who see you as expendable." Emma's phone rang, and her expression grew even more worried as she answered. "Yes, I understand. When?" "No, we'll be there." She hung up and turned to Sarah with grim news. "The new judge assigned to your case is Harrison Sterling, Victoria's uncle. He's calling an emergency hearing this afternoon to review the custody arrangements." Sarah felt the last of her hope draining away. So it's over. They've rigged the system completely. "Not yet," Blackwood said, his voice hard with determination. "But we need to change our strategy. Fighting them in court isn't going to work when they control the courts." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we take this fight public. The Sterling family's power depends on their reputation. If we can expose what they're really doing, show the world how they're manipulating the legal system to steal a child from its mother, we can turn public opinion against them." Emma looked skeptical. "They control the media narrative. How do we fight that?" "Social media," Sarah said suddenly, the idea forming as she spoke. "They can control newspapers and television, but they can't control what real people share online. We tell my story directly, with evidence, and let people decide for themselves." Blackwood nodded approvingly. "That could work, but it's risky. Once you go public with this, you become a target for everyone. There's no going back to a private life." Sarah thought about the baby growing inside her, now just weeks from birth. This child would be born into a world where its father was willing to destroy its mother, where powerful families could manipulate the legal system, where money could buy any narrative they wanted. I'm already a target, she said. At least this way, I'm fighting back. They spent the afternoon preparing for the emergency hearing while simultaneously launching their media counteroffensive. Sarah recorded a video explaining her situation, backed up with documents and recordings that proved Ryan's systematic abuse and the Sterling family's manipulation of the legal system. The video went viral within hours. Justice for Sarah began trending on Twitter. Women across the country shared their own stories of being betrayed during pregnancy, of having powerful men try to steal their children, of being labeled crazy for fighting back against abuse. But the Sterling family wasn't passive. Within hours of Sarah's video going live, counter-narratives appeared. Fake social media accounts spread rumors about her mental health. Doctored photos suggested she was involved with Marcus Blackwood romantically. Professional trolls flooded comment sections with attacks on her character. The emergency hearing that afternoon was a nightmare. Judge Harrison Sterling made no pretense of impartiality. He was a tall, imposing man with steel gray hair and cold eyes that looked at Sarah like she was something unpleasant he had to dispose of. "Mrs. Walsh," he began, "I understand you've been making serious allegations against my family." Catherine Stone objected immediately. "Your Honor, with respect, your relationship to the Sterling family creates a clear conflict of interest. You should recuse yourself from this case." "Ms. Stone, I am perfectly capable of maintaining judicial impartiality regardless of my family relationships. Your objection is noted and overruled." The hearing proceeded exactly as Sarah had feared. Judge Sterling dismissed every piece of evidence they presented, accepted every claim made by Ryan's attorneys, and characterized Sarah's social media campaign as evidence of her mental instability. "Mrs. Walsh," he concluded, "your recent behavior demonstrates that you are not currently capable of making rational decisions regarding your unborn child. Therefore, I am awarding temporary custody to the child's father, Mr. Ryan Walsh, effective immediately upon birth." Sarah felt the world collapse around her. "Your Honor, you can't do this. Ryan doesn't want this baby. He's only doing this to hurt me." "Mrs. Walsh, your emotional outburst only reinforces my decision. Furthermore, I am issuing a restraining order preventing you from making any further public statements about this case or the Sterling family." As they left the courthouse, Sarah was surrounded by reporters shouting questions. The video she had posted that morning had drawn national attention, and now the entire country was watching this small-town custody battle that had become a symbol of something much larger. "Sarah, do you have any comment on the judge's decision? Will you appeal the custody ruling? Is it true you're romantically involved with Marcus Blackwood?" Emma and Blackwood's security team hustled her into a waiting car, but not before one reporter managed to get close enough to shout a question that stopped Sarah cold. "Sarah, what will you do if they take your baby?" As the car pulled away from the courthouse, Sarah realized that was exactly the question she needed to answer. Because in 3 weeks, she would give birth to a child that a corrupt judge had already awarded to a man who had proven he would destroy anyone who stood in his way. The legal system had failed her. The media was controlled by her enemies. But there was one thing the Sterling family couldn't control: a mother's love for her child. And Sarah was beginning to understand that love might require her to do things she had never imagined herself capable of. 3 weeks later, Sarah went into labor at 2 in the morning. Emma Carter and Marcus Blackwood raced to the hospital, knowing that the moment the baby was born, they would face the most critical battle yet. Ryan was already waiting in the hospital lobby with a court officer and his attorney, armed with Judge Sterling's custody order. The sight of him, confident and smug, ready to take her newborn child, filled Sarah with a rage that momentarily eclipsed her labor pains. "He can't be here," Sarah told the doctor between contractions. "There's a restraining order." "Ma'am, I have paperwork saying he has custody rights to this child," the court officer explained apologetically. "I'm sorry, but once the baby is born, I have to enforce the judge's order." Emma pulled the doctor aside for a heated conversation, while Marcus made phone calls to every judge and attorney he could reach. But it was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night, and the Sterling family had planned this timing perfectly. Sarah's labor progressed rapidly. At 4:17 a.m., her son was born. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with dark hair and his mother's determined expression. For exactly 10 minutes, Sarah held him, memorizing every detail of his face while Emma and Marcus stood guard outside her room. Then Ryan walked in with the court officer. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Walsh," the officer said, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "I have to follow the court order." Sarah looked at her son, then at Ryan, who was watching the scene with cold satisfaction. This was his ultimate revenge, taking from her the one thing she loved more than her own life. "Ryan," she said quietly, "please don't do this. You don't want him. This is just about hurting me." "You're wrong, Sarah," Ryan replied, his voice eerily calm. "I do want him. He's my son, my legacy. I'm going to raise him properly, away from your instability and your inappropriate relationships." The court officer reached for the baby, and Sarah felt something inside her break. But instead of despair, what emerged was a cold, calculating fury that surprised even her. "Wait," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I want to say goodbye to my son properly." She kissed the baby's forehead, whispering words only he could hear. "Remember that your mother loves you more than anything in the world. And remember that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from." Then she looked directly at Ryan and spoke clearly enough for everyone in the room to hear. "I want everyone to witness this moment. Ryan Walsh is taking a 3-hour-old baby from his mother, not because he loves this child, but because he wants to hurt me. I want that recorded." The court officer looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I'm just following orders." "I know," Sarah said, "but I want it clear that this is not about the baby's welfare. This is about a man who built his empire on stolen technology, who abandoned his pregnant wife for a business merger, and who is now stealing her child to complete his revenge." Ryan's face darkened. "Sarah, you're being emotional and irrational. Our son will be better off without your influence." "Our son will know the truth," Sarah said firmly. "He'll know what kind of man his father really is." As the court officer prepared to take the baby, Marcus Blackwood burst into the room with Emma Carter and a woman Sarah didn't recognize. "Stop," Marcus commanded with such authority that everyone froze. "Officer, that court order is no longer valid." He handed a thick document to the bewildered court officer. "This is an emergency injunction from the federal district court, signed 20 minutes ago. Mr. Walsh is now under federal indictment for corporate espionage, fraud, and racketeering. His custody order is suspended pending resolution of the criminal charges." The unknown woman stepped forward, revealing an FBI badge. "Mr. Walsh, you're under arrest for theft of intellectual property, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit racketeering." Ryan's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, and finally the cold calculation of a man trying to find an escape route. "This is harassment," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Marcus Blackwood is using federal resources to pursue a personal vendetta." "Mr. Walsh," the FBI agent replied, "we've been building this case for 2 years. Mrs. Walsh's testimony and evidence simply provided the final pieces we needed to secure indictments." As FBI agents placed Ryan in handcuffs, he looked at Sarah with pure venom. "You think you've won? The Sterling family will destroy you. They have resources and connections you can't imagine. You'll never be safe, and neither will he." Sarah held her son closer, feeling his tiny heart beat against her chest. "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but at least he'll grow up knowing the difference between right and wrong." As they led Ryan away, Sarah felt exhaustion wash over her. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Sterling family still had their wealth and influence, and they would undoubtedly find new ways to attack her. But for now, in this moment, she had her son safe in her arms, and Ryan Walsh was facing federal prison time for his crimes. Marcus Blackwood approached her carefully, his usual stern demeanor softened by something she had never seen in him before: gentleness. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired," Sarah admitted, "and scared." Ryan was right about the Sterling family. They won't give up. "Let them come," Marcus said with quiet determination. "We've beaten them once. We can beat them again." Emma Carter sat down beside Sarah's bed, looking at the baby with wonder. "So what's his name?" Sarah looked down at her son, thinking about the battle they had just won and the battles that lay ahead. This child would grow up knowing that his mother had fought for him, that she had refused to be intimidated by wealth and power and corruption. "Connor," she said. "Connor Blackwood Mitchell." Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. "Blackwood? You fought for him when his own father tried to steal him," Sarah explained. "You earned the right to be part of his name." As the sun rose over Austin, Sarah held her son and looked toward a future that was uncertain but no longer hopeless. She had started this journey as a naive woman who trusted too easily. She was ending it as someone who understood that sometimes protecting the people you love requires becoming stronger than you ever thought possible. Ryan Walsh had taught her that love could be a weapon used against you. But Connor would teach her that love could also be the source of unimaginable strength, and that strength would carry them through whatever came next. Sarah stood in the kitchen of the spacious house she now owned in Austin's prestigious Westlake Hills, watching Connor play in his bouncer while she prepared his bottle. The house was a gift from Marcus Blackwood, who insisted it was payment for her testimony that had finally brought down Ryan's criminal empire. But Sarah knew it was more than that. Over the past 6 months, as they had fought together against the Sterling family's continued legal challenges, something had developed between them that neither had expected. It wasn't romance exactly. It was partnership, respect, and a shared understanding of what it meant to fight for something that mattered. Marcus had become Connor's unofficial guardian, the man who showed up for midnight feedings and doctor's appointments, who read bedtime stories and assembled cribs. The doorbell rang, and Sarah smiled as she heard Marcus's key in the lock. He had his own key now, had earned it through 6 months of showing up every day, of being the father that Ryan had refused to be. "How's my boy?" Marcus asked, scooping Connor out of his bouncer and spinning him gently through the air. Connor giggled, a sound that still made Sarah's heart swell with joy. "He missed you," Sarah said, watching the two of them together. "We both did." Marcus had spent the week in Washington testifying before Congress about corporate espionage and the need for stronger intellectual property protections. His testimony had helped pass landmark legislation, and more importantly, it had ensured that Ryan Walsh would spend the next 15 years in federal prison. "Any word from the Sterling family?" Sarah asked as they settled into the living room. "Their lawyers sent another settlement offer," Marcus replied, bouncing Connor on his knee. $50 million if you agree to never speak publicly about Ryan or their family again." Sarah laughed, a sound that would have been impossible 6 months ago. "And I told them they could keep their money. We have everything we need right here." Sarah looked around the room at the life they had built together. It wasn't the life she had planned when she was married to Ryan, but it was better. It was honest, built on respect rather than manipulation, on choice rather than circumstance. "Emma called," Sarah said. "The book deal came through. They want to publish my story." "That's wonderful. What did you tell them?" "I said yes, but only if part of the proceeds go to helping other women in similar situations. Emma's setting up a foundation." Marcus nodded approvingly. "What will you call it?" Sarah thought for a moment, watching Connor grab at Marcus's finger with the determination that seemed to be his defining characteristic. "The Connor Foundation," she said, "for children whose parents put power before love." Huh. Connor chose that moment to reach for Sarah, making the little cooing sounds that meant he wanted his mother. She took him from Marcus, marveling as she did every day at the weight of him in her arms, the reality of his existence. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked quietly. "Fighting back instead of just walking away?" Sarah considered the question seriously. The past 6 months had been brutal. The Sterling family's attacks had been relentless, forcing them to live with security details and constant legal battles. There had been nights when she wondered if Connor would have been safer if she had just disappeared, changed her name, and started over somewhere else. But then she thought about the other women who had contacted her after her story went public. Women who had found the courage to leave abusive marriages, to fight for their children, to refuse to be silenced by wealth and power. "No," she said firmly. "Connor deserves to grow up in a world where people can't buy justice, where the truth matters more than money. If fighting back helped create that world, even in a small way, then it was worth it." Marcus reached over and took her hand, a gesture that had become natural between them over the months of shared battles and victories. "What about us?" he asked. "Where do we go from here?" It was a question they had been dancing around for weeks. What they had built together was unprecedented, a partnership forged in crisis, a family created by choice rather than blood, a love that had grown from respect rather than passion. I don't know, Sarah admitted. I never expected to feel this way about anyone again after Ryan. But what we have, it's real. It's honest. It's everything my marriage wasn't. But, Marcus prompted, hearing the hesitation in her voice, but I need to know that you're here because you want to be, not because you feel obligated to protect us. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching Connor play with the stuffed elephant that had become his favorite toy. Sarah, he said finally, I've spent my entire adult life building a business empire. I've acquired companies, defeated competitors, accumulated wealth and power. But I've never built a family. I've never had someone look at me the way Connor does when I come home. I've never had a partner who fights beside me instead of using me. He looked at her directly, his eyes holding hers. I'm not here out of obligation. I'm here because this is the first place that's ever felt like home. Connor babbled happily, as if agreeing with the sentiment. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. Then we figure it out as we go, she said, all three of us together. Outside, the Austin sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and Sarah realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not the perfect life she had tried to build with Ryan, but the honest life she had fought to create for her son. Connor would grow up knowing that his mother had refused to be a victim, that love could be a source of strength rather than vulnerability, and that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose rather than the ones you're born into. Ryan Walsh had tried to destroy her, but instead he had forged her into someone stronger than she had ever imagined she could be. And in trying to steal her child, he had given her something he would never understand: the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son, and the fierce love that would protect that bond against any threat. As the three of them sat together in their living room, Connor's laughter filling the space around them, Sarah smiled and looked toward a future that was no longer defined by fear, but by the limitless possibilities that opened up when you refused to let anyone else write your story. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from getting the life you planned, but from building something better from the pieces of the life that was taken from you. And sometimes, the most unlikely alliances become the strongest families. Connor would know all of this as he grew up. He would know that his mother fought for him before he was even born, and that love, real love, always finds a way to win in the end.